Welcome to your Committee on Public Safety, Intergovernmental, and Military Affairs. This is the 245 agenda. We're going to hold off on the 215 agenda since the Energy Committee is another location. So we'll go to our 245 agenda. We have two 245 agendas, a decision-making agenda and a regular agenda. We'll begin with the regular agenda, starting with Senate Bill 1177, relating to the Reentry Commission. Replaces the Reentry Coordinator with the Director of Public Safety as an ex officio, non-voting member of the Reentry Commission. Director? Martha?
Director Sakai is on the neighbor island, and we stand on our testimony in support. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Support, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony on Senate Bill 1177? If not, Vice Chair, any questions? If not, we'll move on to Senate Bill 1315, relating to the power of arrest. Permits officers of the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Protective Service to make arrests for certain offenses under state law when the offense occurs on or immediately adjacent to property owned or possessed by the United States government. Lori Temple, ACLU, opposed. Eric Broughton, in support. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony on Senate Bill 1315? Give me a little more options. 1 for, 1 against. Okay, if not, we'll move on. No questions on this, Vice Chair? Senate Bill 1253, relating to public safety. Permits eligible non-violent female offenders to be paroled into structured community placement programs monitored by private organizations. Martha, Department of Public Safety.
The Department of Public Safety, of course, supports this measure, but we don't believe that it is necessary. The Paroling Authority already has the authority to place women in these programs. We have them in existence, and we don't believe this is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Bert Matsuoka, Hawaii Paroling Authority, in support. Oha.
Submitted testimony.
Comments? Thank you. Kat Brady, Community Alliance on Prisons, in support. Lorraine Robinson, TJ Mahoney, in support.
Yes, I'll stand on my testimony.
Thank you. And Jean Ota, Drug Policy Forum of Hawaii, in support. ACLU, in support. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony on Senate Bill 1253? And I seem to concur with the Department of Public Safety that this bill is not necessary, since in essence we're already doing this. Okay, I see heads shaking, so that's good. Okay, thank you. No further questions or comments. We'll move on to Senate Bill 1120, relating to the maximum age for commitment to a youth correction facility. This is the controversial one of the agenda, I guess, based on the testimonies. Eliminates the incarceration of 18-year-olds in a youth correctional facility. Department of Public Safety.
The Department of Public Safety is submitting comments concerning this measure. This measure is written to require 18-year-old juveniles adjudicated by the family court to be placed in the adult facility should they violate the conditions of their parole from the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility. The department met with the Executive Director of the Office of Youth Services, David Hipp, to discuss its concern about this. As a result of this discussion, an agreement was reached, and we've submitted language to amend this bill so it would stop the occurrence of a juvenile adjudicated from the family court from being committed to an adult facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Patricia McManaman, Department of Human Services.
Barbara Yamashita for Director McManaman. We stand on our testimony in strong support.
Thank you. Judge Catherine Remigio, Family Court. opposed?
Good afternoon, Chair Sparrow.
Hello,
Vice
Judge.
Chair Baker.
Welcome.
We've submitted testimony in opposition, respectfully, and I did get a chance to speak with Office of Youth Services, Mr. Hipp, and I understand that they are recommending an amendment to the bill as it is today that would eliminate the 18-year-olds from being sent to OCCC, which was something we're very much against. But I was trying to read it on my iPhone. It doesn't appear to change the part of the bill that would remove the Office of Youth Services from being the guardian of the children. Is that correct, sir? Okay, and so our testimony regarding that would still stand because we believe that it is problematic if the guardianship of these children who will be in HYCF custody is placed somewhere else. A lot of times the children that are placed there do not have either families that are appropriate for them to go to, that we can find to get permission to do the things that they need to get permission to, such as getting services, and that's one of our concerns.
Thank you. David Hipp, Department of Human Services, Office of Youth Services.
Good afternoon, Chair Sparrow, Vice Chair Baker. The Office of Youth Services strongly supports this administration bill. I think it's worth remembering that less than 2 years ago, the Office of Youth Services and the Hawaii Youth Correctional Facility finally emerged after 5 years of federal oversight by the U.S. Department of Justice. Primary reason for that oversight was the conditions of confinement and the civil rights violations occurring at the facility. But the federal monitors consistently were concerned about Hawaii's punitive approach to the juvenile justice system and the over-incarceration of kids that are not a risk to public safety. The issue for us today is that we are incarcerating 18-year-olds with 14, 15, and 16-year-olds. This has a significant impact on our ability to work with those young people. The 18-year-olds are not amenable to change. They contribute to a very unsafe environment for the other boys and girls at the facility. And I would contend that this is not a public safety issue. The 18-year-olds that are committed to me are committed for violations of probation, not for a new crime committed at the age of 18. Were they to commit a crime at the age of 18, they would fall into the jurisdiction of the adult system. Also, eliminating the incarceration of 18-year-olds would reduce our population by almost 20%. That would allow us to close possibly Ho'okipa Makai, which is the dormitory-style facility across the street from the main facility. This would result in a significant savings operationally. I'm estimating approximately $600,000. I understand the judiciary is in opposition to this bill, but what I think this will do will require the courts to seek more effective community-based services for those youth. They continue in juvenile probation past the age of minority to age 19. These youth simply need more support in their communities. They do not need to be locked up. Lack of services is not a reason to put a young person in prison. And I close with a somewhat ironic fact. The judiciary will not place an 18-year-old in a juvenile detention home, but they have no issue with placing an 18-year-old in a juvenile correctional facility. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. Troy Abraham, in support. Is there anyone else that would like to provide testimony on Senate Bill 1120? Yes, there certainly will be questions. Vice Chair.
Just call them all up.
Okay, why don't we have a little panel discussion here with the judge, with Mr. Hipp and Martha. That's a good combination.
You get the nicest seat.
You outrank us.
I guess I'm a little concerned at what I'm hearing, because it seems to me that the issue is really dollars. And what I hear public safety folks recommending, Office of Youth Services, is that let the judiciary find the services and pay for the services. And I'm sure the judiciary would say, we don't have the money for it, it really belongs in Human Services. So let's ask the question this way. If money were not the issue, where does the oversight for these children belong? In an adult correctional facility, in a juvenile facility, or someplace else? And once we determine that, then I think we can determine who has the oversight. So can you help this senator understand the issue if money is not the option?
I would say for public safety, money is definitely not the issue because this would have very little impact on our population. What is the issue for us is the court of jurisdiction for these youth. The adult system is for people convicted of adult crimes. In the state of Hawaii, a 14-year-old can be waived to adult court. By federal rule, that 14-year-old can be housed in an adult facility because they are coming from an adult court. Our concern is that these youth that are being discussed here do not originate in an adult court, they originate in family court.
So where then do they belong?
With the juvenile system.
And who has responsibility for the juvenile system?
If they are committed to the family court obviously has some responsibility for it. Everybody in the police do, the family court does, the prosecutors do, and the corrections end of it does. Everybody has responsibility for it.
Basically, I thought I understood Mr. Hipp talk about the, I guess I would call them status offenders. That may not be the exact term, but so where do those folks belong? Where's the most appropriate placement for those folks?
Let me, and I don't wish to belabor a long point, but I think it's important to understand how these children end up at HYCF. Hawaii was one of the first states, and it is a state that has a unified family court system. And the reason we do that is because family courts are specialty courts, and these types of cases involving families, they're not amenable to the adversary system. There are children who come to us who have other cases, whether it's on the CPS calendar, divorce, paternity, restraining orders, all of those different services that are required for one child and in one family are special in the family court system. And so our purpose is to have one family, one judge, one child, one judge. That way we have continuity. We can also have review hearings to see how they're doing on the services. Are they being rehabilitated? Do they need more services or do they need different services? And that's how we operate. One of the things that happens is we see them at detention home, usually originally at detention home, if they're not what we call a PINS or person in need of supervision. That means under 12 status offense. We'll see them there. They'll come in, we'll see the family. We'll understand what kind of services mom and dad is going through. If they're together, do they have a bad environment that they're going home to, a bad neighborhood? And we will track these children. HYCF is not our first choice. Furthermore, before any of those decisions are made, and even in between, all the other agencies are present. We have the prosecuting attorneys, we have public defenders, guardian ad litems, we have the Attorney General's office who represents the different public agencies. They all have a say, they tell us what they think, and we make a decision. And when we make that decision, again, it's not something that we take lightly. It's usually because a child has had a track record. And when they say these children are coming in on probation violations, it's because we placed them on probation. We haven't sent them to the facility as our first choice. And usually they come in on violation because they haven't been successful. Whether it's because they go back to their environment, their parents aren't taking the treatment that they need, they're in the same neighborhood, whatever the case may be, that's not an environment in which they're going to succeed. And so when they go to HYCF, it is our decision because that is the place that we believe they can continue to get services in a structured environment where they don't get to go back. Now, HYCF has programs, Olamana, they have other programs for children. One of the biggest problems is drug use. Outside that, there's only one, I believe it's Bobby Benson, that can assist these children. When we send them to HYCF, we expect and hope that they will continue to receive services in that confinement. I want to say that, we do have a detention home, and we have tried to keep the numbers down for many reasons. Some of it has to do with money, but a lot of it has to do with our focus on juvenile rehabilitation. And so that's one of the steps we've already taken before they get to HYCF. We've already tried to do these steps within the detention home facility as a carrot and stick approach. And so we know that the human brain at 18 is not completely wired to be an adult, and we give them the chance to go to HYCF to take advantage of the program. If we send a kid till 19, it's usually because we believe that they might be able to succeed if they're given that extra time. And so that's one of the reasons that we believe that they should be allowed to stay there, and I'm happy to see that there was an adjustment made, or there may be an adjustment made to the bill.
Okay, so but you still said you had an issue with the bill, even with the adjustment made, so I need to understand what that is.
Under the statute currently, when they are sent to HYCF, HYCF becomes the guardian of that child. So whatever services a child needs, HYCF will sign up for them. We don't have to go back to their parent. Some of them don't. Their parents may not have the legal right to make those decisions in any event, or we may not know where they are. And so to have them housed or under the responsibility of HYCF, but guardianship or legal decisions housed somewhere else would be difficult, I think, to get the services that the child needs if we have to run around and find where the legal guardian is.
So HYCF and PSD, would you support that? Make that change, and then it sounds like we're good to go.
No, this would not involve us. Because
Okay.
we're asking that they not be committed to us.
Okay.
I think the issue for PSD, and Martha can correct me if I'm wrong, is again putting kids in a correctional facility for what would be a status offense that are committed to HYCF otherwise. But
This is starting to get really circular, and I think the judge explained it well. They're going to have to go someplace, and if you've got services available there and you've got a structure there, why is that not the appropriate place? Because if they're continuing to act out and creating those kinds of offenses, then it's clear that maybe they're not ready to be on parole, or they're not ready to be in some other kind of place.
well, for me, an 18-year-old in the state of Hawaii is legally an adult. And if an 18-year-old commits a crime, they're going into the adult system. Yes, we have programs and services
but they didn't start out there.
66% of the 18-year-olds come to me for the very first time. They have never been in the correctional facility before. So have they been in trouble before? Yes. Have they been shown to be a risk to public safety for the courts? I would suspect not, because I didn't get them while they were 14, 15, 16, or 17. We do have programs and services for kids, and we think we do an excellent job. But I want to... HYCF is a prison. It's replete with the orange jumpsuits, with the strip searches, with the lockdowns, with the mechanical restraints. So if all you have done is violate your probation, yes, you may have an underlying criminal charge, but for a lack of services to put a youth in prison, I just think is wrong. And to mingle those 18-year-olds with 14, 15, and 16-year-olds is equally problematic for us. They have a huge influence on those kids. And our efforts to rehabilitate a 14, a 15, and 16-year-old, when I have a grown man or a grown woman, even though I agree that, yes, some of these kids are not mature enough to make good decisions, they still have a huge influence on the young kids, and our efforts to rehabilitate those kids are severely hampered. If these kids were a risk to public safety, if they were committing crimes, they would land with
Okay,
PSD.
now I'm confused, because you just told me that you don't do rehab at HYCF, and yet...
No, we do rehab at HYCF.
Well, but if we're you're just calling it a correctional, a punitive, and yet you've got these younger kids in there. So why would not you be able to, maybe if there are some 18-year-olds, you segregate those out? You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. At least that's how I'm hearing it, because you're talking about you need to have rehab for these younger kids, but they're still in a correctional facility.
Yes,
correct?
they are.
All right, and then you've got the 18-year-olds that are coming back, but somehow that's not all right for them if their offenses were as juveniles. You're just being inconsistent in my view, but I'll stop with the questions, Chair. All yours.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. So let's just make it clear. If an 18-year-old commits a crime, then they'll go to the adult system. We all agree there, right?
Correct.
But we are talking about youth who might have started out 14, 15, 16. And what you're asking for is once they hit 18, you don't want them in your facility anymore. That's what you're saying?
Yes, and they could go out on parole with the support of my office.
Or they go to the adult prison because you don't want them influencing the younger children. Is that correct?
No, they would not be going to the adult prison for the reasons that they're coming to me.
The proposed amendment will prevent them from coming to the adult prison. The bill as written would allow them, youth who committed a law violation under the age of 18 but are still have extended jurisdiction to 19. The bill as written would allow them to come to us. Our proposed
And the
amendment
judge
would
supports
stop
that, right? It's just the guardian aspect, you know. So getting back to the question, I didn't hear you answer the question on would you the guardian position that the judge is requesting.
If the youth is committed beyond the age of 18 and committed to me, then I would still be the guardian of that youth while they are out on parole, and we would still provide the programs and services for that youth to help them transition successfully back into the community.
To achieve that, you would have to then amend the bill, page 1, lines 10 through 12, and get rid of the strikeouts and the brackets. You would have to reinstate that phrase.
As noted in your testimony? Or is
That is not in our
this is a different
testimony.
one?
That's not in her
It's
testimony.
what the judge brought up. To cover that, you would have to ensure that lines 10 through 12 remain in the law. They do not be deleted from the law.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, that clears it up for me. Thank you.
We'll see if we can get some language that people agree with. If we can't, we'll just defer this indefinitely. Okay? Thank you. At this time, I'm going to recess because our Energy Committee has joined us, and I believe they have to be in another location. We do have... No, but go ahead.
Here.
Okay, convening the 215 joint hearing of E&E and also Public Safety, Intergovernmental, and Military Affairs Committees. We have two items on the agenda. SB16 relating to energy resources requires appropriate county permitting agency to receive and process application for variances for installation of solar water heating systems. Requires county councils to establish procedures and standards by which their respective county permitting agencies approve, disapprove, or approve with conditions, and clarifies existing application procedures. First up is Dept. In support, County of Maui. In opposition, Hawaii Association of Realtors. In support, Hawaii Gas.
Aloha, Senator Gabbard.
Aloha.
Senator Sparrow, I'll keep it short. Hawaii Gas supports allowing the counties to approve the variances for solar hot water heating systems, but we oppose getting rid of the current standards that are in place right now under the law. Right now there's a 30-day review process in place. This allows the counties to set their own procedures. That basically creates a vacuum for anyone that's coming in to seek a variance between now and when the county sets their new standards. So we would ask that the bill pass, but with amendment to keep the current standards in place. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Sierra Club. In support, Blue Planet Foundation.
Good afternoon, Chairs. Jeff Nicolino with Blue Planet Foundation. We also support this measure. The main amendment here clarifying that kind of the historic 2008 Solar Roofs Act, which made Hawaii the first state in the nation to require that most new homes have solar hot water. We support transferring this to the county. This is a building permit process, and they should have the capacity, since they're already inspecting and doing the building permit process, to be able to approve or disapprove these variance requests. And you have our written testimony in front of you, and I just want to highlight a few things. When this law was clarified in 2009, House Bill 1464 CD1, the legislature clarified the intent behind it. And it's very clear in that act, what was it, well, 204 was the original act. It is the intent of the legislature that the variances provided for in Act 204 will rarely, if ever, be exercised or granted because the burden of proof will lie with the applicant to demonstrate that a solar water heater system, regardless of location or circumstance, is not cost effective in the context of a 30-year mortgage term. So that was the intent behind this, that most new homes would have solar hot water heaters. It's really a no-brainer almost everywhere in Hawaii. Yet if you look at what's happened in the past 3 years, there have been over 1,420 variances requested, and over 99% of the requests have been granted. What's interesting when you dig deeper is there are 3 architects that are responsible for over 50% of these variances, and in fact there's one architect alone who's responsible for over 38%. The vast majority, over 95%, are for gas heaters. So I think we have a flaw in our existing law where there are 4 ways you can get a variance, but the last one simply says if you install a gas water heater, you don't have to do solar. We think that should be amended to get to the original intent and say if it's impractical to use solar or if it just does not make sense in the cost-effective basis, a 30-year mortgage term, if it doesn't make sense, then go ahead and get gas. But if we are forcing people to pay more for gas instead of solar because they don't pass that test, I think we're kind of frustrating the original intent of the law. So our proposed amendment says, yes, you can get a variance for gas after you just demonstrate that it's not cost effective for the homeowner. This is a particular problem if you have a developer building, say, a large production home, maybe 2,000 homes, and it's cheaper for them to put in gas instead of doing solar up front. But those folks are going to be saddled with that expense over the life of those homes. I mean, the cost of living isn't just your mortgage, it's your mortgage plus your utilities. And solar hot water can shave, 30-40% off that. So we hope we can make that amendment to this measure and get back to the original intent of this law. Again, over 1,400 variances have been applied for, and Dept, unfortunately, has over 99% of those. We hope that the counties will give a little more scrutiny, but I think the legislature could clarify and make it clear that if it is the cheapest option, you need to use solar. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff. And members, please jump in. We'll take questions as we go instead of at the end. Next is Kauai Councilmember Joanne Yukimura in support, Del Alexander in opposition. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure, please step forward. Okay, moving on to the next measure, SB1132, relating to solid waste. Increases the solid waste management surcharge to $1.25 per ton of solid waste disposed of in landfills or shipped out of state. Increases the solid waste management surcharge to 60 cents per ton of solid waste disposed of at waste-to-energy facilities that accept 150,000 tons or more of solid waste annually. Provides for no surcharges to waste-to-energy facilities that accept less than 150,000 tons of solid waste annually, and for ash disposed of in landfills that originates from a waste-to-energy facility and defines waste-to-energy facility. First up is Department of Health.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committees. I'm Gary Gill. I'm Deputy Director for the Department of Health's Environmental Programs. Thank you for hearing this bill. Mr. Chairman, you're well familiar with this. It's, I think, the 3rd year around. And we appreciate how instrumental you and your committee has been in refining this bill over the years. We think the 3rd time's the charm. You guys are going to pass it. The reason being is the tip fee surcharge that supports our department's solid and hazardous waste branch, our permitting of landfills, our inspecting of landfills, our technical assistance to the counties applying for landfill permits is woefully underfunded. We don't have the money in the fund to support the positions that we have there now. We've been surviving by vacancies and furlough funding. Basically, the fund has not been, tip fee surcharge has not been increased in 15 years. Certainly costs have gone up since then. This bill was reviewed by the counties and a task force of stakeholders. It does recognize small facilities and giving them an exemption. It also anticipates new technologies like gasification and things like that that we would like to promote, so it gives them a break as well. But even with the increase in the tip fee surcharge as proposed, the income or the fee would be less than the average amount that other states charge. Hawaii currently is leading the bottom in that in this regard. There's not another state that runs a program that charges such a small amount of fee, the 35 cents that we do today. So it's unfortunately a time to keep up with inflation, and that's what this bill attempts to do. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Gary. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, we'll take a brief recess for possible decision making. On these two measures, the first, SB16, for E&E, the Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments accepting the suggested amendment from Dept to clarify performance standards of tankless water heaters. We'll also amend page 2, lines 9 to 11 to read, quote, variance application shall be accepted if the application demonstrates to the satisfaction of the county permitting agency that, unquote. And we'll amend page 3, line 12 to read, quote, the criteria established by the counties, unquote. And these last two amendments were suggested by Kauai Councilmember Joanne Yukimura to make clear that the counties will set the standards and the criteria for approval of variances.
County of Maui also wanted the language to be, they said their process is a waiver as opposed to a variant.
Okay.
And to take out the action by the council. So that it's an administrative process.
So we'll change variance to waiver as suggested by the Maui Department of Public Works. I'd like to say that Hawaii Gas, that we noted your suggested amendment, but I'm generally opposed to automatic approvals for something that's discretionary. So I'm sure the county councils will swiftly establish the procedures and the timelines. So with that, Senator, any discussion? Senator Ruderman?
Chair recommends pass with amendments. Chair Gabbard?
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chun Oakland?
Aye.
Senator Ihara and Senator Sloan are excused. We have 3 ayes. Measure passes.
Thank you, members.
PSM members, same recommendation on Senate Bill 16 to pass with amendments. If there are no questions or comments, Vice Chair?
Chair recommends we pass Senate Bill 16 with amendments. Chair Sparrow?
Yes.
Senator Baker votes aye. Senator Galataria is excused. Senator Green? Aye. Senator Slum? Excused. Measures adopted.
Okay, and then the recommendation on SB 1132, Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Senator Ruderman?
Chair recommends pass unamended. Chair Gabbard?
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Chun Oakland?
Aye.
Senators Ihara and Sloan are excused. We have 3 ayes.
Thank you, members.
PSM members, same recommendation on Senate Bill 1132 unamended. Vice Chair?
Recommendation is to pass Senate Bill 1132 unamended. Chair Sparrow?
Yes.
Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Green? Aye. Slum and Galataria are excused. Measures adopted.
This hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Public safety will reconvene in 2 minutes. 3 o'clock is on.
Brief announcement for those of you